Hi, everybody. Welcome from around the world. We come together for Pet Awareness Month to look through the lens of sensorimotor psychotherapy at different interventions and ways that we can really help our clients to shift their somatic, their body-based experiences. I'm Bonnie Goldstein. I'm one of the faculty at Sensorimotor Psychotherapy, and I embrace all of you who are here today, curious about how to use your own pets in a therapeutic session or in the therapeutic milieu, or our clients and their animals. Indeed, now that we're so many of us going online, we have the opportunity to see some of our four-legged friends or all types of pets that are in the homes of our clients. And so today I'm going to share with you a few different scenarios, vignettes, including a videotape session where I'll describe the session rather than playing the session. Some of you who've been in our child and family treatment may have seen it. Let's start with this boy who we're calling Wills, who had such a hard time connecting or feeling comfortable in his own body, and certainly couldn't take comfort from his family. He had diagnoses from spectrum disorder or autism to general attachment disruption based on a series of adoptions. And indeed, our comfort pet in the session seemed to be the only way to help him regulate. Now, we all know that we're looking for resources to help our clients regulate. But in particular, through the lens of this puppy, he was able to start to see himself, start to calm his body down, start to be aware of what happens inside. We had a beautiful moment when he first came to therapy, body like this, head down, and the dog jumped on him. And all of a sudden, he was fully on the floor with the puppy, rolling together, having the most fun, a full body, joyous experience. So from the get-go, we had shifted what was an adult telling him he needed to come to see another adult, I'm a stranger, to an experience of play that allowed him to enter the room. Then we were able to use the puppy and the puppy's body-based behavior as a way of seeing his own behavior. There was a moment where the puppy saw a thread on the carpet and grabbed onto that thread and started pulling. And startled, I looked and I spontaneously said, no. And the puppy's body went into what was very clearly, or at least projected by both of us, by Wills and myself, as a shame posture. You could see the puppy looking like this. Wasn't the first time we'd been in that dance. And my sharp no startled us all. And Will said, as the sage 10-year-old that he was, that's how I feel. So we looked at that. We saw the puppy's head down, his body. We were videotaping the session. And I so advise all of our listeners to videotape your sessions, because the things that you see when you replay the sessions are powerful. But this boy was able to see and replay in the replay the body posture of the pup. And that became something we went back to over and over in our working together. Not only was he finding comfort using pet therapy, using our sweet puppy, but he was able to drop into how his body also often feels that same response. And of course, in his family, he was the one who was being told no. And he was the one who often ended up being the identified patient, feeling ashamed, having that sense of, I can't quite do it right. So we use that as a lens to work together to help him understand how his body contributed to the feelings. Let's all take a minute to drop into what we might say is one of the many shame responses. Head down, puppy dog eyes. That was what we were seeing, both in Will's and in the puppy. And if you tighten like this, you'll try to breathe and you'll notice. Try to take a breath. It's very hard to do so. And indeed, Wills could identify that he would go through life, head down, shoulders in, waiting to get in trouble. And so we explored what would happen if he took his hands and he did this. Those of you who've studied the sensory motor training know about this collaborative way of opening up and breathing. But Wills hadn't been aware. He didn't have the self-awareness of his posture. He often was getting in trouble at school because his hands would find themselves on somebody else's body. He would be known as, I'm so sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. And yet the behavior didn't change. And the experience of sadness and shame and self-recrimination after some form of aggression towards another classmate, unwittingly, or if he was being teased, then not being able to keep his hands to himself to retaliate, his body had become accustomed to this. He walked through life in this posture. And by our working together with his breath, his body, shifting his posture, looking at and having Wills train, so to speak, or guide our puppy in different postures and noticing the different postures, we were able to learn from the puppy different ways to understand the body. What began as having a comfortable experience of playing with the puppy turned into a lesson that he was able to hold on to. Now, most of us are familiar with the deep, ongoing, painful experience of shame for ourselves, for our clients. I'm thinking of another situation and an application of this for a girl who was a university student trying to finish out a semester before having a transfer to a different university. She was molested on a date, and then after reporting it, she experienced being the pariah where everybody was staring at her. Everybody was looking at her. Some of this may be conjecture, or she may have had that sense. Some of it may have been very real. There was an uproar at the university about this. Did this happen? Did this not? It turned into a major conflict. So for a few months before I met her, she was ordering food in, food delivery every day, so she would not have to go to the cafeteria. And yet she realized by not having that experience of going into the cafeteria, by avoiding her peers, she also was losing other opportunities for herself. So our work was to find ways that she could help herself. And she too became aware that her body collapsed in a far more profound way. She walked around campus like this, always looking at her phone. She was always counting on her phone, earbuds in her ear to allow her to self-regulate and make it to classes. She said she found herself sitting in the back of the classroom often so that she wouldn't have to have anybody behind her. That became a safety mechanism for her. By being in the back row, nobody could be staring at her, or, as she was afraid of, pointing, commenting, saying she was the one. Well, we looked at some of those assumptions, and we did a lot of looking at the psychodynamics of this experience and of not being able to leave until the term completed, at which point she knew she had the relief of moving to a different university. We also became aware that even though her mind said or told her things, or she came up with messages, or working through the lens of cognitive behavioral therapy, we had all sorts of exercises. She couldn't hold on to them in the moment. So going back to pet-assisted therapy, she was in our session and also took refuge in the joy of playing with our puppy and really experiencing the comfort that the puppy offered. And at one point, we collaboratively came up with the idea that we would take a few photos as she was holding the puppy and at one point dancing with the puppy. together they were having such a good time. At one point, there was a video where she was running around, and the freedom, the play, the unbridled play, because in that moment, she was able to forget why she needed and wanted to come to therapy and forget the story that brought her into treatment, the trauma. So we wanted to concomitantly hold both the trauma and also these experiences of joy. And by videotaping them and taking photos, the phone that she had relied on, looking down to not see people, brought her joy. However, that was just the beginning, because we were trying to help her understand her body as it experienced these two parts, the part of the trauma and also the part that is resilient, that went on, that could play, that could find joy, that could calm or self-calm down. So as we together watched her experience with her puppy captured on her phone, we were able to look at her body and how it resonated, and she could feel herself, her back, her spine elongated, her head held high, the joy, the giggles, just watching, the shared camaraderie as she and I watched together and settled together and plotted together about how she would re-enter the cafeteria with an agreement that we would start small. We were titrating. She would go at the end of the meal at breakfast time, where she said most of the university students were half asleep already. She would slide in at the end, but also not just look at her phone in these pictures, but carry into the dining hall this full length, this tall, this full-bodied experience, and the breath that comes with it, and the awareness that she could hold these two parts and drop in and be at one. So taking a breath now as you hear about these different stories. Perhaps you've worked with clients who struggle similarly. We're looking at the comfort that a pet can offer, but also how we can utilize and deepen and have a full body awareness, both our clients and also we as therapists ourselves. And as I come to a conclusion, I'll share that when I'm working, often with the most difficult of moments of trauma with a client, I often find that having the pet in the room becomes a resource to me, that I can hold our clients' emotions, I can resonate with them, I can be fully present with them and aware. And I noticed that right at a moment of sadness, of deep pain, our clients, maybe in those moments of sadness, the puppy will go over and jump into their lap. At one point, puppy licked the tears. It's a very interesting experience to see how puppies resonate. I've been using pet-assisted therapy for many, many years. First, we had Goldie, and then we had Milo, and most recently, Brooklyn. And I'm struck that each of these beautiful pups, whether they're 6 months or Milo was 14 years, and they still had a resonance with our client and an ability, a sixth sense, so to speak, a puppy sense or a dog sense of where to be and how to provide support. When we're working with our pups in our office online, we may notice and seize an opportunity with our clients who have their own pets, understanding the relationship, understanding the role of the pets at home, inviting them. Lines like, I'm curious, I wonder what would happen if, and then weaving in an exercise where one of the animals in the home, very recently, we had a newborn bunny. I was working with a girl and her sister, and the conflict in the family dynamic was whose bunny was it? And there was one bunny, two siblings. I'm sure many of you have had those kinds of conflicts. And we were able to use not just the bunny as part of the therapeutic milieu, but watching the girls as they discuss and how each of their body postures supported. The younger one, who was used to getting her way because she pitched the biggest fits, did that right in our session. And we could watch the bunny, noticing the bunny, and seeing how the bunny started with the ears, and then the bunny, you could see the bunny separate from the room. So we put the video of the session on hold. And then I said, let's watch. And I was able to watch with them. Sitting in my office, they're in their home. We could watch the tape of the session as it transpired. And they could see, the younger girl could see how dominant she became, how her body changed, the rigidity, the I expect what I want, I get. And indeed, it let us know so much, because it let us know that that was the role in her family. If she didn't want to go to the restaurant, nobody went to the restaurant because it was easier to appease. And you could see the system and the problems within the system. This is one of the families that Pat Ogden and I have been writing about for our book for Norton on using sensorimotor psychotherapy with our child and family treatment. With this bunny rabbit, the girl watching the effect she had and her voice and her body, her posture, her entitled rage, shall I call it, watching the effect on the bunny had a far more profound effect on her, because she could see through this pet-assisted moment ways that she had an impact, not just on her family, but on all our creatures, large and small. So I invite you all to think about ways that you can utilize the pets that are in your life or in your client's life, inviting as a mirror to their behavior. And of course, bringing back to the body the understanding, the insights, the cognitions, the emotions, even the projections that we have on our pets, bring them back to our clients so that they can be transitional objects in the moment. They can help us to guide our clients, and they can become internalized in new and even more effective ways. So I welcome you all to learn more about sensorimotorpsychotherapy.org. Talks about the different workshops we have, the different trainings we have. And I hope that today has given you an opportunity to think about what you're already doing in your own professional lives to make a difference, and how you can try on new and interesting ways to work with our children of all ages. Have a great day.